They told me that they are from a planet called BRV. It is located in what we call the Taurus constellation of our galaxy. It is roughly 450 light years from Earth. Now, I understand that they can traverse that distance, they can cross that distance in about 4.5 years as we measure time, which means that they have the technology to travel at least 100 times the speed of light in crossing space and time. He also told me that they have known of this planet for 600 million years. They have visited, and there have even been extraterrestrial races to settle on this planet long before the Homo sapien that we are ever arose upon this planet. But the experiment apparently failed over a period of time because the technology was lesser, and because at the time it was kind of like a prison planet or something like this, wherein undesirables were placed. Now, don't get me wrong. We are not in any way genetically related to those earlier settlers that left those footprints in the Jurassic mud. It would be much later before man arose upon this planet. About 42,000 years ago, in the skies above northern Africa, the Tarxicians, who are of a reptilian origins, were at war, skirmishing with the Biavians. And there was a war, and several of the ships, both Targ and Biavians, were downed on an island which was at the time about 100 nautical miles north of what we now call Tripoli in Libya, out in the Mediterranean. This fabled island is what has come to be known in mythology as Atlantis. We call it Atlantis or Moon, or what have you. Now, about 42,000 years ago, in order to, the Biavians, the aliens, felt that over a period of time, since they were more or less trapped here, at the time they could not travel this 100 times the speed of light. The technology was less, and it took hundreds of years for them to traverse space and get here at that time, even at near the speed of light. It would have taken nearly 500 years. So they knew that ultimately they would die. So in order that they would not die, they decided to look among the Homo sapien people, the nomadic hunter-gatherers in northern Africa, and choose from among them certain people and genetically engineer or crossbreed their blood lineages and things of this nature, so that they might carry on their own dynastic races and what have you. Thus began the intermingling with man and the extraterrestrials. Now, if you read back into some of your ancient scriptures, if you will read the chronology, read the book of Genesis, and take note of the house of Adam, you'll find that through generations, the progeny, some of those people lived 700, 800, 900 years and things of this nature. But as time went by and they continued to mix with indigenous people on the planet, the blood lineage was diffused, and thus the lifespan became shorter. When I tell you truly that many of you before me here today, if not all, hold within your chronogenesis some part of that alien gene or genetic and things of this nature. From there, the great kingdoms of ancient Sumeria. You see, in order for them to have carried on and had people to tend their gardens and to do their architecture and things of this nature, and to have those whom they could teach astronomy and history and the sciences and things of this nature, it was necessary. It was necessary for them to build stabilized societies. So that the hunter-gatherers who moved about with the seasons and the rains and things of this nature would not leave and go and disperse upon the land. So So they builded cities. And in order to support these cities and things of this nature, they started agriculture. They introduced what you call wheat. The grain wheat was introduced to this planet. It was not here in the first place. So were many of what we call the dolphin was introduced here into the water to aid a group called the Neptunians who lived under the sea. And so by building this food base, they could then begin to build cities and start animal husbandry, irrigation, things of this nature, and the study of astrology, medicine, numerology, and things of this nature that arose around that fertile crescent and spread out upon the earth as time went by. Now, having thus given you a brief history summation, we'll come on up to more recent times. In 1947, in the month of July, a ship, a Biavian whispercraft, came out of a quantum window. And at that very moment, now, when you jump to light speed or beyond light speed, that's a vulnerable moment to suffer from radiation fluctuations in the electromagnetism. When you come out of a quantum window and materialize, this is why ships sometimes seem to just materialize out of nowhere, because they're just getting here and they're jumping out of that window. When it jumps out of that window, the hydrogen-fed fusion core that powers this ship for a moment is shaken, so to speak. The core is shaken, and it brings the computers offline for just a split second. It was at that moment that a great lightning bolt hit that ship and brought it down. The military got hold to it. In 1953, in the northern islands of Hokkaido, an alien drone fell. And it was shortly thereafter that the Japanese made extraordinary advancements in microelectronics. But so did we. In America, however, the ship that fell in Roswell was less intact, so to speak. It blew all to pieces, so back engineering it, or the technology of it, this microelectronics, was more difficult than the one that was found in Japan. I tell you this because it was told to me by these extraterrestrials who gave me access to their archives and what have you, as far as the history of this world. That much of our technology that we have today, microelectronics, satellite technologies, fiber optics, and things of this nature, was gleaned, stealth technology and all this, was gleaned from these discoveries that were made and back engineered. We have the power, as it's been seen over Area 51, the military has the power to power up the prototypes of some of these ships. Using a oxygen, hydrogen, thermite type mixture, ammoniate mixture, they are able to fire up enough heat to generate the electromag to offset gravity for short spans of time, for maybe 20 or 30 minutes or something of this nature. But they have not yet developed and sustained a hydrogen fusion reaction. If they could develop it and sustain it, hydrogen fusion reaction, then the whole cosmos would be open to us. The alien has this technology. My book tells you, long before they made it knowledgeable here, of the way in which the aliens clone new bodies. It tells you that physiological life or death is not necessary. If you have the technology, you may, in truth, reclone bodies for yourself. Now, the way they do this is when they do clone a body for a person who is reaching old age among the aliens, which may be 10 to 20,000 years, reaching old age, then they inhibit the growth of the brain. That is the cerebrum, the cerebellum, the medulla. There are only parts of the hypothalamus and the limbic that are left intact. They do not grow the brain of the being, you see, so that the original brain from the original person can be surgically removed and placed into the new vehicle. and thus have many thousands of years to go forth. Now man has reached the rudimentary stages of cloning. However, even as we speak, upon this earth somewhere, there are rich, very rich people having bodies for themselves cloned. Nonetheless, it is such until they cannot inhibit the growth of the brain, so essentially what you are doing is growing a new human being. And in order, even though they may not yet have the technology, they hope to have it within the next decade or so, to transplant the brain. And once gaining that, in order to do that, they would literally have to commit murder to kill though the clone is genetically the same, the thought processes are different. They would have to actually kill the clone, which is why this would be an unholy thing to do. If they were as advanced as the aliens and not grew the brain in the new receptacle, then of course there would not be a murder when this would transpire. You see. But of course man is on the way to doing these things, and ultimately it shall be so. I brought you here today, asked you to come here today, to tell you that we are essentially living in of this epoch and the chronogenesis of this planet. We are living in the last days of time as you would measure it, time as you know it, circumstances as you know it. I do not tell this to you in the factor of psychic friend resonance or anything of this nature. I am not a psychic. I have gotten this information based upon collected data that was given to me by these extraterrestrials, which are called the Avians, from soil samples, air samples, ice samples, water samples, depletion of the ozone, cutting of the rainforest, expansion of the population, various new diseases being released into the atmosphere, nuclear waste, etc., etc. Take into consideration karma, hatred that is built up over thousands of generations among various people on the earth. It is now saturating the ether and permeating the air. This does not mean that everyone is going to fall dead at a given time. This does not mean that the humanity in some form or the other will still not endure per se. But it does mean that if we do not utilize the knowledge that we have, take the inventions off the shelves, go to alternate fuel sources, new forms of power generation, and things of this nature, within the next decade or so, that there's going to come about calamities and transitions upon this planet such has not been seen in the chronogenesis of man. And that...
You get it?
Okay.
Y'all ready? I'm Eric. Okay, and the name of the program is called The Black Eye. Okay. Featured right on it for a year or two.
Y'all ready?
Your name is? My name is Reverend Abduction.